Alright, so I had these last night, but it was late. I was in bed. I said screw it, went to sleep, and now I'm awake. So, spicy balance adjustment preview. Got some good things here, got some cool things, got some interesting things. Let me just go over this real quick. Briar Witch, Spez, Karak, Haste, Yuna, Tieria, Silk, Kawazu, Captain Rickris, and Tieria's artifact. Yeah, I don't think anyone uses that. Alright, so let's go to the first one. ML5, Briar Witch Iseria. So, Witch's Curse or passive. So, upon receiving lethal damage, grants immortality to the caster for 1 turn. Immortality effect can only be activated once every 5 turns. So, that's pretty much like Kayron's passive at this point. They essentially just took Kayron's passive, slapped it onto her, right? It's a little interesting, it was a little strange, kind of random, but I mean, it does have its uses in certain aspects. We'll talk about that real quick afterwards. And her S3, so now instead of a 85% chance to make the enemy unbuffable, now you have a 100% chance. I feel like technically this should have been the case from the start, but we finally have it, which is good. All right, so usage-wise, the immortality is kind of weird. It does feel a little random. At the same time, this makes it so that she can get S3 off almost essentially no matter what now. Aside from getting stripped by AoE like Fairy Tale Tenebria and then provoked, she's pretty safe. Not to mention she is an ranger, so she can equip Guiding Light if you have that artifact. If not, you can get it when Cerise comes back, I imagine. So that will help her get S3 off no matter what. So this can be used in situations that I feel like is if, let's say I'm trying to cleave someone, they try to counter cleave running squishier units, and they decide to pick Rylet with a mischance, try to dodge my damage or whatnot. Kayron, try to anti-cleave me, that kind of stuff. So she can really help counter those two things. Unfortunately, this doesn't change her usage too much. The way you would use her previously, before, it wouldn't change too much. She's still being used in the same niche aspect, So that's what I still feel like. But it does make her usage in that niche aspect better, in a sense. So it's a buff for her, which is still really good. Alright, moving on, Spez. So, alright. Upon successfully stunning the enemy, increases combat readiness of the caster by 25%. So S1, right? If you stun them, you get combat readiness 25%. Stun chance on S2 goes up to 60% chance from 45%. And S3, damage dealt increased also. S3, if skill 3 is available, when anyone else, when the enemy attacks your ally, you have a 20% chance to counterattack. So they essentially took Elbrus, and slapped it onto Spez's S3. Like, what? Okay, also kind of random, but it seems like what this does is, unfortunately I don't have Spez, but a lot of people already use counter bruiser Spez, and the counter is so that he can hopefully get a stun off of his turn. So when it does get to his turn, he can then use his skill 3. This essentially accomplishes the same thing, but it upgrades that. So now with the counter bruiser Spez, you also have the extra Elbrus chance, so you can stun off your turn, get your combat readiness, get your skill 3 off kind of thing, right? So you probably don't have to build them like crazy damage, 2.5k, 3k attack, counter, somewhat speed boots, you don't want them to be too squishy because you don't want them to just blow up. So this is, it's going to be annoying. More than anything else, it's going to be very annoying, especially when you pair it with units that can stun, right? Tywin, General Purgus, depending on what your team comp is going to be. Strip, stun, you have that. So it's an interesting buff. I'm not a big fan of it in the sense of I'm going to hate dealing with it. All right, and for the people that know that, I love Karak. I did make use of him when he first came out, when Basar was still crazy in the meta. It did really well for me there. So I'm pretty happy to see a buff for him. That's pretty cool. So S2, you can dispel 2 buffs before increasing skill cooldowns by 1 turn twice. So same thing as before, but now you have 2 buffs instead of 1. Right, so certain things won't stop you as much. Fallen Cecilia's, other things like that. So you can get past the barrier and the immunity now, both of them. And then after that, skill 3, attacks all enemies with an explosion, silencing for 1 turn before granting stealth to the caster for 2 turns. Penetrates defense by 30%. So naturally penetrates now. Yeah, you don't need increased speed for that, which I felt like was kind of too conditional before, which is nice. Now you can also silence and you get stealth. So this is pretty huge, to be honest. The only issue with him still, I feel like, is without an extra turn on skill 2, it does make it a little bit more difficult to utilize him in a you can't wombo combo him, right? You S2 into S3, a little difficult, right? You S2, you're gonna have to wait a turn before you S3. So I'm gonna be trying to use him a little bit more with Stripper. I'm just gonna use Cerise, Fairy Tale into him, and then we'll see what happens there. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I'm gonna build him back up. I'm gonna try using him. All right, everyone's favorite unit, obviously. Yeah, Haste finally got buffed. Bit of a weird one though. I'm still not set if I like this or not. It's a bit of a niche aspect also. So attacks with an enormous scythe with a 60% chance. Okay, blah blah blah. To inflict bleeding. Steals 1 buff if the target is an earth elemental hero. So it's elemental conditional. Right, it's an element condition where you have to be earth. So it makes me feel like he won't be, he won't be good everywhere. And it's the same for skill 3. Blood Rend, amount recovered, increase the proportion of damage dealt. Okay, that's fine. Not too big a change there in my opinion. But so Vampiric Steel, okay. 85 max 100% chance each to inflict 3 bleeding effects for 2 turns. So you're guaranteed it essentially if you have enough effectiveness or if the unit has no effect resist. And then when there are 3 or fewer enemies, damage dealt increases with fewer enemies, same thing. But detonates any bleeding effects inflicted on earth elemental heroes at the end of the turn. So I think that aspect is huge when you're bringing haste against earth specific teams. So in RTA it's a little difficult because in RTA they might pick 1 or 2 earth heroes or something like that sometimes, but it's not very often you'll see that always being the case. If they pick 1, I don't think it's a big deal for them or whatnot, because the thing is haste won't be good against everyone else there in this case. In Guild Wars though, I can see haste being a very good pick against because most people pick RGB teams and their defense, right? They'll always have a Charles, Alencia, I don't know, some people might have a Rowana, I see sometimes, that kind of stuff, right? Or Speedy, Bruiser, Landy. So haste can be very good against those teams in Guild Wars. Is a very good pick in that situation to nuke earth unit, because we know haste does good damage, to be honest. It's just his skill kit before wasn't very good. I'll be honest though, but yeah, I'm not fully set on this buff because of the fact that it's very conditional. So it makes haste, I guess, a little bit niche, like a good, like a strong niche aspect in certain situations. So we'll have to wait. We'll have to wait about this. I've never had haste build, to be honest, even though I've always had him. I'll wait for the people who have him invested already into to test him and see what they say. All right, Yuna, yeah, Yuna fanboys rejoice. Vinny. So not too big of a change, right? Acquires 3 focus from the buff. And then afterwards, yeah, S3 grants an extra turn to the caster. So this is pretty cool though, to be honest. Right, you can S3 into S1. So I actually might see some she might actually see a decent amount of usage for people in arena or people in RTA who like using her. There are some people out there. She could work with, you know, some sort of like cleave team. But it'll be interesting. I think it's pretty cool. Alright, and then Free Spirit Tieria. Alright, and then Silk. I don't see much about Silk, to be honest. Sorry, anyways, Free Spirit Tieria. I honestly feel like she's still kind of like a PvE unit. I don't really see her still being used in like PvP/RTA. Like, sure, your skill is reset when enemy is defeated, but it doesn't really change much of her usage, in my opinion. All right, Silk. I don't think this does too much, to be honest. I don't see Silk doing much even with this buff, so I don't think there's gonna be a big difference there. Kawazu. This was actually a little bit interesting, to be honest, for Kawazu. So attacks enemy with a ball of flame with 25% max 50% chance to decrease defense for 2 turns. Okay, so you have a defense break. After attacking, it has a 35% chance to activate Burning Vitality, and that increases combat radius of the caster by 20%. Composure. When the caster is debuffed after being attacked, dispels all debuffs and increases attack of the caster for 2 turns. Can only be activated once every 3 turns. So it's kind of interesting. I'll be honest. Like, I don't think it's amazing, but I feel like I'm gonna see a few people whip this out and use it, because the skill kit's kind of funny still, kind of interesting. So I'll see if anyone uses that. Ricorous was a kind of like a surprise buff. I guess I didn't expect to see Ricorous here of all units. But yeah, skill 3, 100% chance to dispel 1 buff from the target, and then you have a 75% chance to restrict for 2 turns. Has a 75% chance to stun the enemy with the highest combat rate, so still same thing. So they essentially just added the restrict for 2 turns here. It's a little kind of interesting, I suppose. I really didn't expect a buff for him. I feel like he might be a sleeper pick possibly in certain situations for people, which will be kind of cool. But maybe we'll see some people will use this a little bit more with the restrict here. It's not a big change, but it does make him a little bit more usable in this situation. I feel like it still needs another buff though. Yeah, 75% chance to stun the enemy. That's all. 75%. They need to buff the 75% chance to stun. Alright, aside from that, Tieria's artifact, increases effectiveness when enemies defeated, increases that, It's okay. No, it's once again more like I don't know, like PvE, I don't know if you'll still use this. Even, to be honest, I feel like there's better artifacts to use. So, yeah, I mean, to me, this is still a meh, whatever. Alright, so, long story short, Iseria, pretty good buff in my opinion. Specimen Sez, really good buff. Karak, pretty good buff too, to be honest. Haste, it's an okay buff. It's a good start. Makes him niche, but usable now in my opinion. Yuna, pretty good buff actually, in my opinion. Free Spirit Tieria, it's alright. Silk, Kawazu, Captain Ricorous, all. The rest of these, the 3-4 stars is okay. It's nothing like crazy. It wasn't anything like Tempest Certain buff or anything there. No. But all the 5 stars I think were actually pretty decent buffs this time around, with possibly Spez being the best in my opinion so far. And yeah. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed the thoughts there. Peace out. See you guys next time.